Welcome to this new video. I tried this a couple of years ago, doing videos on new releases, and it was reasonably successful. I think COVID was still around. I tried it last year and it was a disaster. I'm going to give it another go this year, but I'm already halfway through the year, of course, so made a very slow start. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do some videos month by month, depending on how many of the albums in that month that I download and listen to will depend how many videos. I'm going to start off with January of this year, and I'm actually going to only do one. Um, brief comment on these new records, but it's basically my commitment to new music is 100%. And so far this year, I've downloaded, because I'm in Thailand and there's no vinyl, I've downloaded over 50 albums and we're into month six. So that gives you some idea. But with this January, I got off to a pretty slow start. And there is actually only, I think, five to consider. So the opener is by Gruff Rhys, or is that Reese Gruff? No, I think it's Gruff Rhys. And his new album came out in January. It was called Sadness Sets Me Free. This is his eighth studio album. And of course, he was with the band, the Super Furry Animals, a band that I sadly neglected. And I have to be honest, I think I've only got one of his solo albums. So I'm not really well up on this guy. Rob Walker is, and maybe I should have chatted with him. Anyway, this album, he gets together a bunch of session musicians, and he recorded it well, no, 18 months back in March. Uh, it's super sweet indie pop, particularly on track Candelian, and it explores lots of electronic sounds and delves into some riffy glam rock in places. It's funky and a little Brazilian on the dance floor friendly, I found from the song They Sold My Home to Build a Sky Rapper. There's lots of strings and horns in here that sweep across the arrangements. Now, I'm going to have a quick dip into the tracks, not a lot though. So, just to comment about the first two tracks, the opener is the title track. It's got a very country pace to it, and the piano dips in with a pedal steel guitar sound, um, compounded by some orchestral arrangements. And I like the violins. And the other track that I want to comment on is Bad Friend, which is uh, could have really been recorded in Nashville. It's got that very country-ish ting to it. So that's the first one I'm going to comment on. I'm not going through all the tracks. I've listened to it about three times. I'm still not that familiar with it, but I think it could be a real grower. So there we have it. Gruff Rhys and his new album, which entitled Sadness Sets Me Free. Next up is an album by Sarah Jarosz, an American sort of folk singer, well, folk indie rock sort of a singer. This one is titled Polaroid Lovers. It's very much in that folky world music country feel. And I've played this now a few times, and I really am starting to get to like it a lot. She's uh, she's sort of dropped a little bit of her mandolin playing, and so this is much more sort of soft folk rock. But if we go back a little bit, she has always had a sort of indie flavour to her. Jesus Moon is the opening cut, and it was written on ukulele and acoustic strummer. And she co-wrote it with her producer Daniel Atasian. And it certainly is a nice, very sweet opener. I like the piano riff, and the rock was very much on here. Sarah Jarrow, sorry, she sings of life's shifting priorities. Another track that caught my listen, The Way It Is Now. This is beautiful folk rock, and more of that, thank you very much. The album really does flow. It has well, the title, Polaroid Lovers. It's lots of photographs of life that you pass through, and the songs are sort of genteel. Give it a listen anyway. I like it a lot. And it could well be in my top 10 at the end of the road. I've got quite a few of her albums. So she's not exactly a new artist to me. Her name is Sarah Jaros, and the new album, Polaroid Lovers. Get my English up, boy. Next up, then, is the album called Wall of Eyes, and it's by a band called The Smile. It's their second album, and some of you will probably recall that this is unites the two members of Radiohead, Tom York and Johnny Greenwood, alongside drummer Tom Skinner. It's their side project, as Radiohead has really become sort of almost a distant thought from the past. A lot of mood and atmosphere. It's not a million miles away from particularly Kid A. What I have to say about this style of music is that you have to be in the right mood. Uh, for example, it can become a bit sort of monotone if you catch yourself at the wrong moment. York's vocal style is a bit of an acquired taste, but you certainly can't annoy it. But Addison is a huge talent, and this type of style of album, which you could foresee as a sort of movie soundtrack because of the atmospheric nature of the sounds, really is right up his wheelhouse. Um, anyway, this let's try and mention a few tracks. The title track is a little bit of chaos electronica personified, albeit very soft. A maths rock oddity describes Read the Room, track three. And I thought when I heard this that I could hear a little bit of King Crimson in their sort of red Starless era back in the mid 70s. And certainly, I could certainly hear Robert Fripp. And then some nice piano on Friend of a Friend. This really does need to be listened to fairly frequently, and don't leave too much space between listens, otherwise you'll feel like you're starting again. It's very much mood uh, electronics style music, hardly surprising from these two Radiohead heads. Does that sound right? So there we have it, Wall of Eyes by the band The Smile. Next one from January this year, I caught a glimpse of a band that I remember when I first came to Thailand. Their name was Kula Shaka, an English band, and they emerged in the mid 90s as very much an alt rock band. And I certainly got their first two albums and played them a bit, not too much. Uh, but they really did embrace that sort of fuzzy tone psychedelia. And there was a touch of Eastern mysticism that brought back memories of 60s groups like Traffic and Quintessence. Yeah, if you're old enough to remember that. Um, there's a little bit of this Eastern style on this album as well, and I picked out my favourite track called Chura Leah, You Stole My Heart, which mixes that Eastern Indian style vocals with horns on top of a rather funky beat. Uh, Also, Something Dangerous. Uh, it reminds me a little bit of George Harrison, and there's some harmonica that peers through the mist on here near the outro, which is quite catchy. I only have heard this album twice, so this is a very limited review, but I would suggest you check it out. Kula Shaker, Natural Magic. I think it's in fact their fourth album, but I stand corrected on that. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is really where we came in, I guess. My last one then for January 2024 is an album called Orquedes by the artist is called Culi Orchez, a young Spanish singer. This is her fourth album. And this album, all but one track, is actually sang in Spanish. And it really expresses her love of funky R&B with a touch of jazzy salsa in there, a bolero, and something called reggaeton, which I haven't a clue what that means. It's a set of songs for dreamers and dancers, and there's 14 tracks, quite a few collaborations here, lots of nice soft vocal choruses, but it's also very hooky and very disco-y. A few tracks to pick out then. The opener is Oa Como Así Mi Pongo Loca, two tracks segueing together, smoochy style leading into the second, which is very much full of ethereal synth beats that act as a bit of a guided meditation. Um, I also liked the next track, Igual que un Angel. This is more R&B. Again, those synths are in there and lots of tight beats. But the standout track is a sort of ballad, bolero called Temata. It's very sensual. It's drenched in strings, and the singing is absolutely gorgeous. Um, so not really my style of music, but there's still a little bit in there that I really enjoyed. It might go down well in the car when you want to sort of wake up in the morning. But clearly for the under 25, this one I would suggest. But anyway, that concludes my first review of new releases from January 2024. There will be links in the description to the YouTube, and on Rumble, I will select a few of those tracks that I've mentioned for your listening pleasure.